All right, today we're talking about 4.5 systems of linear inequalities. And right here is an example of a system of linear inequalities where we have y is less than x plus 2 and y is greater than 2x minus 1. So notice we've just substituted out the equal sign for an inequality sign. And we are going to be doing the same thing that we did in chapter 2 when we were graphing linear inequalities. So as a quick refresher, if you have greater than or you have less than, we're going to be using a dashed line. If you have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, you're going to be using a solid line. I want you to go ahead and get these 6 steps written down, and then we're going to actually practice using them on the next slide. But the first thing you're going to do is identify the slope and the y-intercept of one equations. And then you're going to graph that line. Then remember, since it's an inequality, we need to include shading. So we check if 0, 0 is a solution unless it's on the line. Then we pick any other point that's not on the line. And then we shade. So remember, if it is a solution, you shade where 0, 0 is. If it is not a solution, you shade the opposite side. Then you're going to repeat those same steps with the other equation, and we're darkening in the overlap. So pause the video, get all of those steps written down, and then go ahead and start it again when you're ready for the first example. So our first example is going to be y is less than or equal to 3, and y is greater than x plus 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph this top one, and I'm going to use a table to help me. So remember, if we have y is less than or equal to 3, I'm going to plug 3 in all the way down my table and do zeros for my x's. Or I'm so sorry, I'm not going to do zeros. I'm going to do -1, 0, 1, and then I can graph those 3 points. Since it's equal to, I'm going to do a solid line. So the next thing I need to do is test 0, 0. So I'm going to go 0 is less than or equal to 3. That is true, so I'm going to shade below this red line. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this second one. So here I'm going to identify my slope as 1. My y-intercept is 0, 2. So I'm going to start with my b, and I'm going to graph 0, 2. And then I'm going to use my slope of 1 over 1. And I'm just going to make a few. And here I'm going to have a dashed line because there's no equal to. So there's my line. So the next step is now I need to test 0, 0. So I'm going to go 0 is greater than 0 plus 2. 0 is greater than 2. This is false. So since this is where 0, 0 is on the graph, I'm going to shade above it. And then I'm going to darken in the overlap right here. So this blue section is your final answer. So this, when you're using your pencil, you want to darken in more than the other one. All right, let's try another example. So we have 2x plus y is less than -1, and 2x plus y is greater than 3. So I'm going to start with this top equation, and I'm going to do that one in red. And in order to identify my m and my b, I need to put it in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So I get y is less than -2x plus -1. My slope being -2, my y-intercept being -1. Then I'm going to graph it. So I'm going to go to -1. Since it's a negative slope, I'm going to go up 2 and to the left 1. And again, I'm going to do this a few times on my graph. Then I'm going to use a dashed line since that equal sign is not there. All right, now I need to shade. So I'm going to test 0, 0. So I get 0 is less than negative 2 times 0 plus negative 1. 0 is less than negative 1. That is false. So I'm going to shade where 0, 0 is not. So that is below the line. So now I'm going to do the second one. So again, I'm going to subtract 2x. So I get y is greater than negative 2x plus 3. And I'm going to identify my slope as negative 2, my y-intercept as 3, and I'm going to start to graph it. Now, some of you might have been like, identified it as parallel lines, so it's no solution. And unfortunately, you cannot just say no solution because our answer is not where they intersect. It's rather the overlaps of the shading. So you have to actually graph this all the way through. So I made my dotted line, and now I'm going to test 0. So I get 0 is greater than negative 2 times 0 plus 3. 0 is greater than 3, which is false. So I'm going to shade above it. Now in this problem, we have no overlap. So our final answer here is going to be no solution. And it's again because there is no overlap. If this inequality had been y is less than, this would have been shaded on the other side. All of this would have been darkened in. So that's, again, why you have to go all the way, because we're looking for that shading part. So we're going to do one more example, and then we will be done with the notes. So we have y is less than negative x plus 1, and 2x minus y is greater than or equal to negative 3. So I'm going to start with this left one because it's already in slope-intercept. So I'm going to go m is negative 1, and my slope is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. Starting at 1, I have a negative slope. So I need to make sure that my line is falling from left to right. And I'm going to use a dotted line. So there's my first one, and now I need to do my shading. So I get 0 is less than negative 1 times 0 plus 1, so 0 is less than 1. That is true, so I'm going to shade where 0, 0 is. All right, now I'm going to do the next line. So I'm going to subtract 2x. And I get negative y is greater than or equal to negative 2x minus 3. There's that negative 1 there, so I have to divide by negative 1. So we get y. Now remember, when we have inequalities and we divide by negative, we have to flip our sign. So I get 2x plus 3. So I'm going to have my slope and my y-intercept. So my slope is 2. My y-intercept is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and graph this one in blue. So I'm going to go to my 3, and I'm going to go up 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Since this is equal to, I'm going to make a solid line all the way through that graph. And then I'm going to test 0, 0. 0 is greater than or equal to 2 times 0 plus 3. So 0 is less than or equal to 3. Again, that one's true, so I'm going to shade below my line. And that end of my line was a little off, so I'm going to fix that. So when I graph this, I'm going to graph or shade everything below. And I'm going to darken in what the overlap is. So where you see the blue and the black, I'm going to darken that in. So that red part is my final answer. So all of these statements or all these ordered pairs make both equations true. So make sure you have your notes out as you are working on your worksheet, and we will go over this tomorrow, and you can re-watch anything that you need to. Thank you.